everyone, and welcome to today's video. Today I'll be doing another spiral painting, but this time it will be a complete rainbow. I'm doing this painting as a commission for one of my friends because she loved one of my ocean pieces and wanted to see how it would look as a rainbow. I've done this before, but it was really long ago when I had just started using this style, so you can probably only find it in the really old posts on my Instagram. Speaking about Instagram, I've been uploading a lot more on my Instagram and TikTok accounts, and you should check out there since I've been using a lot of other different art styles and creative styles. In this painting, as you can see, I'm starting out with the first color of the rainbow, red, and moving downwards to orange, then yellow, green, blue, and then purple and indigo. There are 18 slices to this pie which have been equally split using a protractor and specific angles. Each one of the lines which you can see I'm painting in is approximately 1 centimeter long. This is a rectangle painting which is pretty big in comparison to what I usually do. You can see the end product both here and on my Instagram at the end of this video. So I've moved on to the third color now, and as you can see I'm either going outward or inward, starting from the center of the painting, which is the smallest part, and going outward. I switch every once in a while depending on how much paint there is on my paintbrush. I could wipe off some of it, but I prefer to do it this way. As I said in my last video, I do enjoy it this way better than using tape to draw out my lines, although this way ends up being a little messy and takes a little more time. Like the color wheel, I haven't split the number of lines that I'm going to use for each color. So as you can see, I'm just going with my instinct. I'm going from red and now I've reached orange. I'll take a few more colors to get into yellow before I go into green. So I just do it based on how I feel, and usually one color might be a little heavier than the other, but it does make the painting more unique and beautiful. At least that's how I feel. I usually use the same amount of color since that's the set that I usually use, starting with crimson red or scarlet red, moving on to permanent deep yellow and yellow ochre, also adding in some orange and burnt sienna. For yellow, I usually use lemon yellow with a little mixture of ochre, and for green, I use either Viridian or sap, or a mixture of the two since they make a more opaque color, reducing the amount of coats I have to do. For blue, I usually use cobalt, but in some cases I use Persian too. And of course, titanium white and black. As you can see here, I've moved very quickly into the green, and I've only used three lines for red, 2 for orange, and 2 for yellow. I think I used 2 more or 3 more for green, and moving on that way. So usually I try to follow the color wheel as much as possible, trying to equate the amount of colors that they are. So I'll try to do 2 or 3 per color, and that way it's more even as the end product. I find paintings like this quite calming, so I do enjoy to do them more often than not. I don't always film them since it makes the situation a little more stressful. I will try to as much as possible though, but I have been filming shorter videos for TikTok recently, recently with quilling instead of painting because I haven't been painting as much. So for this shade of green, you can clearly see that it's not opaque enough. That's why I go over with a second coat, which is what I do any which ways for most of the other colors. But for this one in particular, since Viridian Green is actually quite translucent, I usually go over it more times than not. And it's one of the colors that you can clearly see what reason I have to. The same with the blue, since from the edges it's usually less filled up than the center, so you'll usually have an uneven scraping of paint, so I'll have to go over it a second time or even a third just to make it more even. It always changes the texture of the painting, so if you run your hand over it, which is probably not a good idea, but if you run your hand over it, you can feel the different textures based on the quantity of paint put on each one. For this one, you can see clearly that it seems less opaque, but that might be because I just added white to it. So you think you can see the bottom of the canvas, which is usually what I feel. That's why I go over it twice. Although when you add a large amount of white to any paint like I have done here, I haven't used cobalt, I've just used in blue with titanium white. That's the most opaque that the paint can get. So sometimes I just go over it with one coat, as you see I've done here. So I just keep adding white until I have less and less, and it becomes as light as possible to fade into the next color, which is usually the way I go since I want them to merge as much as possible. For example, with the reds, oranges, and yellows, you can see they combine very well. So if I was to blur it out, you wouldn't see a clear difference between them. Although between the yellow and the green, you would, as they're different colors, and although I could merge them, it would take a few more lines, which at this point I don't have since I have to cover 7 colors in only 18 lines, which seems like a lot, but really it isn't, because I only get 2 or 3 per. So I've done 3 layers for the red, 2 layers for the red, 2 for the orange, 2 for the yellow, 3 for the green, and 3 for the blue. And now I'm moving on to purple, which is the second last color in the rainbow. And you see here I've added a little bit of pink, even though I could be adding indigo. It changes it a little bit, so I just go with what's on the color wheel, which is usually not pink, but I do like this color when I'm doing it this way because it merges well with the red as well when I go back. So I always try to make a complete circle with some of these paintings. For the last one I didn't, but then it was you could clearly see where I had stopped, and it looked more like a spiral. This does too, but I prefer making it look like a complete painting so you wouldn't know where I started and where it stops. So I've used pink because it's the closest relation to red, which is an orange, so on the other end. And as you can see here, I'm just going to make a darker shade, which is a mixture of the last faded purple and this pink to fill it in. And of course, after I'm completely done, I will spread on a thick paint of varnish, and I will do the edges in black. You can't see those in the final painting, but that's what I do after, since I have to do them outside since I spray on the varnish. And here is the completed piece. Thanks for watching.